Salutations, Imperial citizens and battle brothers. It has been a while. I have been on a break until this fateful moment. The Warhammer 40,000 core rules for the brand new edition are out. This is it. This is what we want. We are gaming now. 11th edition, or the new edition, because Games Workshop doesn't like to do numbers, is finally out. This will be more or less my first impressions of the rules. Now, I have already heard a bit about it. I saw the leak, the French one, but it was all in alphabetical order, so it was a bit hard to decipher. So I'll be reading the core rules and give you my honest reaction. As far as I am aware, this isn't the full thing. The actual book in the Armageddon box will be a bit more elaborate, and the chapter approved update and the designer's commentary will come out at a later date, and I will be reviewing those as well. But for now, let's focus on the core rules of the game. Here we go. It is split into basic rules, the battle round. So now they're not doing it in between as they used to with the other editions. Battlefield and tactics, terrain and objectives, of course. And then we have advanced rules and, of course, a reference sheet and a core rule index. Oh, that's pretty useful. That probably means you can, if you're looking for stealth, you can just control F for stealth and get it. So here we go. We have some introduction stuff. We'll move across 5 phases, so that didn't change. Or did we have 6 phases before? I don't remember. Charge phase, fight phase. There's no leadership phase. Oh, here we get some Armageddon box action, and they're all painted as Ultramarines. Pretty fun. That's obviously what I'm about to do once I get my hand on this thing. Here's some adverts for the app, and I heard good things about the app in the new edition. The app will be pretty good. Yeah, missions will instruct players to muster an army. A simple guide to mustering an army can be found on the app, so I assume it's not gonna be on this page, but here you go. You can just scan the code with the Warhammer app, and that's how you get done. All right, here we go. We get some Blood Angels and some Tyranids, some Baal action here, of course. And here we go. Core concepts. Before you armies, each player in a game of 40K commands an army made of models, so that didn't really change. So yeah, everything in your list, every figure you bring to the battle is your army, of course. And if it's not in your army, it's your opponent's army, basically, because Warhammer is a 2-player game. No multiplayer per default here. Units and models. Units can contain one or more models, of course, and they all move together. Most of them have a base. Friendly models, enemy models. That's what I just said. Active player and opposing player. At any time, one player is the active player and the other is the opposing player. And this is obviously the player whose turn it is. Yeah. Interesting. Oh, interesting here. Whenever a unit is selected to shoot or fight, until that unit is done resolving all of its dice, that player is the active player. So this could be something about who gets to pick something first or whatever. This could be what that means. Okay. Oh, I hit the button by accident. Measuring distances. You measure in inches, of course. You need some dice. Here you get the D3, the D6, and all of this kind of stuff. Leadership roles. To make a leadership roll, so that didn't change. 2d6, you have to roll higher or equal to your leadership. Here we go. Battle shock. To make a battle shock roll, make a leadership roll. There we go. Oh, so now a battle shock test is just a leadership test. But basically, the way I interpret this, battle shock tests all battle shock tests are leadership roles, but not every leadership role is a battle shock test. So, for example, if you fail a Dark Pact in Chaos Space Marines, you don't get battle shocked. That's what that is. Battle shock units have OC dash instead of OC 0 as it used to be. This is pretty important because it means you can't buff it back up from 0 to 1 with like Necron plus 1 OC, with Ancients, with banners and stuff. The Wardens of Ultramar, of course, can't do it, so that's something. You cannot target it with stratagems, and it cannot do an action. And if it has an action, it cannot complete the action. Ooh, that's pretty interesting. Okay, I'm pretty sure that was nothing new, but the OC thing obviously pretty important here. Data sheets, just a breakdown of how a data sheet works with all of the stats. I assume you guys know what the stats do. So here we go. Yeah, of course, things are points and stuff. Which units can bear that? That's just the breakdown of the data sheet. So here we got the Orc Boy. Nothing new. Nothing new in the data sheets right now. Here we go. Moving. Oh, it's not the movement phase though. It's a moving. So this basically just tells you you measure the distance from the base of your from like the base of your model, and then you have to put the edge you just measured from at the other side of the measurement. So you don't measure from the top and then put the model behind, so it gets its base as an extra thing. That's not how that works. That's how it works in Star Wars, I believe. In like X-Wing, you put the little measurement stick down, and then you just put the model on the other side of the stick, and that's how that goes. Here we go. Okay. Ba, ba, ba. Each time you move a unit, you can move one or more of its models straight line and or rotating as many times as you want. Fair enough. Each time you move a model, unless otherwise, it can be moved through friendly models. Okay. It can be moved through any space its space can fit through. All right. Cannot move through enemy models. Cannot cross the edge of the battlefield. Of course, so you can't go off board and then come back. And while moving, conditions must be met. Can models move into engagement range? Each time you move a model in a straight line, move it horizontally across the battlefield. Okay, rotating a model, so just pivoting. Pivoting doesn't count towards any distance it hasn't moved. This now gives you some extra movement. The way it used to work in like 5th edition and stuff, when you just put your Rhino on the edge of the deployment zone and then you rotate it forward and you get like an extra inch or two because it's longer than it is wide. But I heard it's not actually affecting charges at all, because you have to roll the number of the distance it is, and then you just move it, and you don't have to consider the pivoting stuff for that. But yeah, ending a move. No models are on another model or in a terrain feature like or a wall that makes sense. It has to be incoherency. That's something we will get to. All stated after moving conditions are met. Okay, so yeah, okay, that's that. Yeah, if it can't move that way, you just have to reset and do it properly. Okay. And here we get some diagrams. So basically, you move in a straight line. So you don't measure like a thing that happens. But yeah, this model can move a maximum distance of 12. Yeah, and the pivot is free basically. So you now pivot for free. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, you have to rotate around. Excuse me, the central axis here. Okay. If you cannot set up a unit, set up. Before units can move main attacks, they will need to be set up on the battlefield. That's yeah, deployment. So you have to deploy your units outside of engagement range, and incoherency, of course. If you cannot set up all of your models, remove that unit and return it to its original position. Okay, so basically, so if you're in a transport, you try to get out and there's no space, you just have to put them back off the table and wait until there's some space for you. Uh, ba, ba, ba. Yeah, it can remain stationary. Coherency. Here we go. Coherency. So this changed dramatically, and there will be a diagram down below to explain it. So you now have to be within 2 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically, because you can be up on a second floor of a building or something, of at least one other model. So we went back to only needing to be within two of one other thing instead of being within two of two other things. I really appreciated that, because I hated the within two of two thing you had in big units. It was just so annoying to position, and then there was like one guy on the tail end of your unit, and your opponent was like, "Is that 2 inches?" And you're like, "Oh, I guess it's not," and then you have to fix it because you can't move out of coherency. It's not legal. So if you point that out that it didn't work, you just have to move it a bit back, and that's just what that is. Yeah. So annoying. Yeah. But also, every model has to be within 9 of every other model. Okay, so this is interesting. So previously, I believe you can string 10 guardsmen out to be like 12 inches wide or something. I don't have the exact measurement, but keep in mind I did something like the infiltration chain with my eradicators in the Vanguard, if you remember my Vanguard video. So that's obviously not possible anymore, because 9 inches is still a lot, but it's not that much. Pretty interested to see if there's like a rule that can modify this distance, and that would be pretty interesting. This also, however, means that as this is written, at least if you have multiple pockets of models within two of each other, but not within anything else, but they're all within 9. Like you have like six, I don't know, six blade guard, and you just put them two, two, and two in like a triangle, but the individual pairs of blade guard are not within reach of each other. So that is currently legal. Pretty strange. Okay. If at the end of turn step, so also just like it was before, if something is not in coherency, you just have to destroy a model, and you don't get any destroy effects if that is a thing. So you can still pull yourself out of coherency if you remove some casualties in the shooting phase, and then you get charged, and then you just remove the models in the center of the unit, and then you have to pull the models out of combat. So in your turn, you don't have to fall back from the unit with your whatever is left, that is something interesting. Okay. A model's engagement range. Here we go. Engagement range is now 2 inches. Okay. A model's engagement range is the area within 2 inches and 5. So it's up 5 and 2 sideways. Well, a friendly model is within engagement range of one of my enemy models. Those units are engaged. That's great. Congratulations to them. Pop the champagne. While a model contains no engaged unit, it's not engaged. That makes perfect sense. So here we have coherency. Yeah, so basically, it doesn't say wholly within. So these two bases don't have to be in like the edge of the circle. So that isn't necessary. But as you can see here, this model is not within 2 inches of both of these as it used to be before. This one is, but yeah, that is something you don't have to do. But now imagine those three models in the center were not in the unit. That would still be a legal way to set up a unit. Interesting. So here we go. Yeah, the coin berserkers are engaging the sisters here, here, and here, and that now makes them combatants. Pretty simple. This also means pulling out of combat is a bit more difficult. All right. Making attacks. So here we have the attack sequence, and this is something I had to already figure out because I was tagged about it a lot in the judge discords. So, excuse me. So what do we do? While shooting, you select all the ranged weapons. While fighting, you select one weapon. Okay. Bup. Close quarters is now the pistol keyword. They just stopped using it as a pistol keyword, probably so they can use something like the maybe the Centurion grenade launchers or something, because they're like chest missiles or something. Maybe they do that, or maybe Gilliman's underslung gun gets to have the close quarters keyword, because why not? Like, why not? It would make sense to me. Okay, while shooting, select one enemy unit of the target. That makes sense. The target must be visible to the model that has their weapon and within range. So again, you measure from each model that wants to shoot to the model you can see. So if there are 10 models in a unit and you can only see one of them, but that one model is further away than the 10 you can see, you have to measure distance to the one model you can see. So that is important and can't be engaged. While fighting, you have to be engaged and you can only use one of your melee weapons. Okay. Makes sense to me. So here we go. Resolve attacks. Yeah, you get the dice. You have to consolidate all attacks that have the exact same rules. So basically, if there's the exact same profile, there's no special rules on these. You have to just roll them together. So that is fast rolling here. Here we go. And then you go to the attack sequence, and then you do the rest of that. Okay. If there are any weapons targeting the same unit that have not been used to make attacks, return together. Yeah, so basically you just keep attacking. Here we go. Okay. Identical attacks are the ones with the same ballistic, blah, 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 which are affected by the same applicable abilities and rules. Splitting melee attacks, so you can still split your melee weapons between two different units. So if Robute Gilliman is in combat with a Rhino and a squad of Corn Berserkers, and you want to use the Sword of the Emperor, you can hit the Berserkers with 5 attacks and the Rhino with 7, basically. Or no, it's 14, so it's 5 and 9. Or you know what I mean. Yeah, okay, makes sense to me. The sequence ends after blah blah blah. That doesn't matter. So here we go. We have hit rolls. A 1 always fails, a 6 always succeeds, and a hit has to be matching the characteristic. A fail doesn't. Okay. Wound, same thing. What do you need to wound? You compare toughness and stuff. No problem. That's all the same. Save roll. So this is now interesting. Create groups. Divide all models in the unit into groups as many times as required. One group for each character, one group for all other models with the same characteristics. So basically, if you have a character and 5 intercessors, basically, all 5 intercessors have the same stats. So now you just make 2 groups. You make intercessors and then the character. The character has to go last. Now you make your save rolls. And the way this now works, you still have to just hit your save or your invulnerable save modified by AP if it's the normal save, and you have to match or exceed the save. So that part is the same. So what now happens if you roll, like if you get handed, you have 1 intercessor left and 1 captain left, and you get hit by 5 attacks with no AP, and you roll 3 1s and 2 6s. What happens now is you don't slow roll that anymore. You just apply the ones first to the first group. So the first fails all go on that intercessor. So the intercessor takes 2 damage because you failed 2 saves, and then 1 1 goes to the captain, which now takes 1 damage. And then you have 2 6s, and the 6s will also go to the captain because it's the last model left. This is obviously pretty good if your character model has a better save than its unit, which also means it is a bit more difficult to spill damage into a character just by shooting or punching a unit manually, because the all of the good dice will be shoved towards the end for that character model. So something like an Archon, a Dark Elder Archon, will be pretty difficult to kill, because until that Archon is by himself, all of those ones you are rolling have to go on the unit first before they actually have to hit the shadow field, which is pretty interesting. All right, inflict damage. Uh, and that part is the same. Yeah, and obviously, if you have a wounded model, you have to put that model into the first allocation. So there's something I want to point out because this could be pretty interesting, and I want to know if I got this correctly. So let's pull up MS Paint here. Uh, ba, ba, ba. Let's pull up paint.net. Here we go, paint.net. So Let's say we are looking at the Wardens of Ultramar, because this is a unit with probably the most defensive profiles in one thing, maybe except for the Corsair guys from CSM. So we have one Metaurus with oh god, I have to write with a thing here. So we have one Metaurus with a 3+, a 4+, and 4 wounds. We have one Gadriel with a 3 up and a 3 and 4 wounds. Excuse me, 4 wounds. Then we have one Gaius Sylvia with a 4 up, a 5 up, and 3 wounds. And we have 3 other guys with a 4 up and 3 wounds. So, if we get hit by 10 attacks, let's say we get hit by 10 attacks and we roll 5 1s, a 4. We roll 5 1s and 5 4s. No, 5 3s. Like no, let's say 5 1s, 1 4 and 4 3s. Let's do it like that. Okay. So the way we do this is we have to, before we roll any save, we just have to allocate the model. So I would probably go for something like, if we get hit by no AP, I would probably say we are putting the Wardens first. So we are putting the basic Wardens first. Then we can put Metaurus. Why did I make it 2? We put Metaurus second, and we put Sylvia third with the 5 up invuln, and then we put Gadriel. So this now means we have rolled 5 1s. So the ones go on all of the Wardens. So we take 5 damage on the Wardens, which means one of them dies, one has 1 wound left. Then we take the 3 we rolled, and we still have to apply it to the Wardens. So we remove 1 more for the 3. And the last 5 dice were all 4, so they all go on the Wardens. Now let's say the Wardens died in this exchange, and we still have a 2 and 2 4s left. So because we allocated the groups like this, the 2 would now go to Metaurus, who would now fail with his 3 up save. And then he would also take the 6s, which would then keep him alive, because he has a 4 up invuln here up there. There we go. Excuse me, I mixed up Gadriel and Metaurus, but I think you get the idea. So this is the most complicated way this could probably be used if you have literally 4 different models in this unit, but it's pretty interesting to think about. I'm really curious how will play out in practice. All right. And that is basically it. Here we go. We have another thing here. Yeah, and obviously you can still pull any models that die if they have the same save. You just pick which ones you want. And there's a bunch of diagrams explaining how that works. So if I got the Warden's example wrong, please tell me in the comments. I want to know, because this is how I really understood it. Okay, there's a lot of stuff for this. Okay. Yeah, visibility. Yeah, you just draw a imaginary 1 millimeter line between 2 models. Models in both units, the shooting and the visible one, don't count as being in the way. Now, if there's a really big model in the way, like a hammerfall bunker, it could be that this model just completely blocks line of sight to the other model. But you still just have to draw a thing to any part of the model. Now, I did here, this will not include like spikes or antenna anymore. This will only be like the main body of something. But let's find out. Model wounds. Mortal wounds still spill over to each model until they are destroyed. Yeah, select the model. If a non-character model has lost wounds, you have to do this. Otherwise, if it contains One or more character modes, you have to choose one of those. Otherwise, if one or more characters have lost wounds, so basically you just go down the thing. So that didn't change. Also, you have to just keep assigning things. Just as before, when resolving attack dice, if those attacks inflict a mix of both mortals and normal wounds, it will now be mortal wounds. So uh, this also, it's the same thing, but many people didn't understand what the mortals go last actually meant. The mortal wounds don't go last, like at the end of all the attacks. It goes at the end of the attack dice. So when resolving attack dice, if those attacks inflict some wounds, that's how that goes. So if you have like a bunch of Sternguard bolt rifles with death wounds, you roll the Sternguard bolt rifles, you apply the damage, and then you apply the death wounds, and then and then you shoot the heavy bolter, which also has normal damage and death wounds, but you don't do the normal bolt rifles and then the heavy bolter, and then you resolve the mortal wounds and then the other mortal wounds. You just do that as it would be. Hazardous. Hazardous now goes on a 1 and a 2, but it now only does one mortal wound instead of three mortal wounds. So technically, it's the same amount of damage. It's free if it's a mortal. Okay. It also means the damage now spills over. That's pretty interesting. So it didn't used to be like that, but now it is. Interesting. You also make all of the rolls at the same time. So if it's only one mortal wound, that also means you don't just straight up lose models. Or it used to be three mortal wounds, so basically. I'm thinking about Hellblasters. So basically, if you shoot with Hellblasters, you have 10 Hellblasters, and then you make 10 hazardous checks before, you would only fail like one or two. Now you're probably failing like three or four. But the mortal wound damage will be the same. However, if you only take one mortal wound on a Hellblaster, it now won't die and therefore can't just shoot. Interesting. So it's no longer just stuff. It's just one mortal wound. Okay, but one or two. Interesting. Really, really interesting. Okay, and here we have the visibles thing. So it's visible, it's fully visible, and the unit is visible, and then the unit is fully visible. Okay, I'm assuming this will all come back during the cover segment. Now we go to the battle round. Finally, the battle round. Start of the battle round, and then we have player turns, and we have other turns. So start of the battle round. Any rules that trigger here have to be done before the battle round actually starts. So, or basically before any of the phases start. So this is basically the phase before the phase. This would be something like the war. This would be the coterie of the conceited, picking how many pledges it wants to kill, something like that. That's basically what that is. Yeah, player turns, of course. You have your turn, I have my turn. That part is still all the same. End of battle round. This is when you do stuff that happens at the end of the battle round, and that's usually like actions and stuff like cleanse or something. No cleanse. I mean recover assets or something. That probably doesn't exist anymore. Just something right now. It finishes at the end of the turn. So at the end of the battle round sometimes. Okay. End of the battle round is pretty interesting though, because this is not a turn. This is a battle round. So this is obviously after both people had their turns. So yeah. Start of the turn. This also means things that happens at the start of the turn instead of the battle round. Okay. Start of the turn step, end of the turn step. So this would be recover assets. The one I meant was sabotage. Sabotage is end of battle round. Okay. Here we have the phases. Start of turn, command phase, movement phase, shooting phase, charge phase, fight phase. So that is 7 possible turns you can blow a CP reroll if you are allowed to use one. Good to know. Start of the command phase. You get 1 command point. That happens first. Okay. You gain your core command point. Good stuff. Then you go battle shock. Oh, that used to be at the end of the thing before you do the stuff. Okay. So you battle shock first now. This is interesting. Okay. Which means if you want to use like I guess, how does this work with like stratagems? Blah, blah, blah. if a stratagem says in the command phase, because this is the command phase, you could still use it before you get battle shocked, right? I mean, if it's at the start of the command phase, it happens at the start, like at the very start. But after that, you can just use it before you get your command point and before you get battle shock. Though I don't know why you would spend the stratagem before you gain CP, but that's what that is. So battle shocked. A unit has to pass a battle shock in order to not be battle shocked. And you all basically you have to roll again if you are battle shocked. So this is basically just a fancy way of saying your battle shock doesn't stop. You have to try and pass it every single turn, or you just keep being battle shocked. Good stuff. So it's not like assumed you are no longer battle shocked and then you get battle shocked again. It now says you are battle shocked until you're not. Important distinction. This obviously makes battle shock a lot more powerful. Command abilities. This is stuff like Robute Gilliman's thing or something. No, wait, that's at the start or end of phase. I don't know what that means. Is that stratagems? Oh, this could be stratagems. Is that how that works? So you can only use stratagems in slot 4? Could be. Could be, actually. Maybe you can use it before Battle Shock. Tell me in the comments if you know. 5. End of the command phase. This is obviously when you score your mission and when you have some other rules trigger. Okay. Yeah, Battle Shock examples. So this unit is 3 models. It's not Battle Shocked. Has a starting strength of 7, but it is Battle Shocked, so it has to roll again, which means Battle Shocking random stuff. Good stuff. So, also it has a starting strength of 10. It is not below 10. That is a big difference, actually. It is at or below half strength. So now you have to check if you are at exactly halfway. So before, it used to be better to have a even number of models in your unit. So you want to be right now, you in 10th edition, you want to have like a 6-man unit, because if you go down to 3, you still don't have to test. But if you have a 5-man unit and you go down to 2, you have to test. Now it's actually reversed. Now you want to have units that are odd, because if you have 11 models in your unit, if 5 of them die, you don't have to check anymore. That's pretty important, yeah. All right, good to know. Yeah, has a starting characteristic of 1 and a wound of 11. It has 3 wounds remaining, so it has to make a battle shock. Makes sense to me. Okay. Movement phase. Here you go. Reinforcements can arrive in this phase to bolster your stuff. When the move unit step ends, the active player must have all selected all of the move, including those with strategic reserves. This means before the phase ends, every unit will have been selected to make a move, even if it's to remain stationary or in reserve in that case. Okay, so units can make moves out of things. So you select the unit and you pick stationary, you pick normal, you pick advanced, you pick fallback, you pick disembark, you pick ingress. Interesting. I assume ingress move just means you come out of reserve. I will be looking at these later. Interesting about this is now you can't technically just forget to move a unit, because you do have to announce every single thing you're doing. So if there's something in a tournament where you just didn't interact with this unit of intercessors at all, you now have to actually, like, the shooting phase start and you're like, oh man, I forgot to activate those intercessors. And then you have to figure out with your opponent if they just remain stationary, which is probably the easiest compromise, or if they still get to normal move or something, depending on how lenient it is and what the thing means. Okay. Here you go. Remain stationary. Nothing moves, and they do not trigger any rules that state start or end of a move, like reactive moves. Nothing new here. Normal move, you just move up to your movement in distance, and you don't have to. You can't be engaged, and you have to be unengaged at the end. So that means probably you can move through engagement range, which we didn't before, because it's now 2 inches. That would be pretty hard to screen. But it also means at the end of that move, you have to be more than 2 away from your opponent instead of 1 away. Pretty interesting. It also means it is harder to get past a unit with like fly or something like that, because you have to be at the other side of your opponent, but outside of 2. So you basically, in order to get an intercessor past the unit, you have to use your 12-inch move and you have to fly over the unit, and then there's 2 inches and your base is more than 1. So you have to be like within 9 inches of that unit to completely clear it on the other side. Interesting. Advance. If you're not engaged and you don't end it engaged, or you do an action, you can add an extra d6, so that's nothing new. A fallback move. You have to make an ordered retreat or a desperate escape. Interesting. Now Desperate Escape says you have to make a hazardous test. Oh, so you no longer just die if you fall back through models. That is interesting. Okay, so you can through enemy models if you do Desperate Escape. If you're battle shocked, you have to do the Desperate Escape. Otherwise, you can just do a normal retreat, and you cannot shoot, charge, or do any actions if you fall back. Okay, and you obviously have to end your fallback outside of engagement range, and you have to be engaged in order to fall back. You can't just make a fallback move without being engaged. Sadly, yeah. Selecting modes. Yeah. Okay, that's just what I said. Okay, that was the movement phase. We're getting through this. I think. Shooting phase. Start of shooting phase. So if you have to pick something at the start of the shooting phase, that happens. There's an icon for it now. Pretty interesting. And then there's normal shooting, assault shooting, indirect shooting, close quarters shooting. Oh, interesting. Okay, let's see what all of those are about. Yeah, you have to be able to be on the battlefield and you don't have to have been shot. And if you do an action, you're not eligible to shoot. Okay. And then end of shooting phase, blah, blah. Okay, normal shooting. You are not engaged and you didn't make an advance move. You make attacks and you cannot do an action. Good to know. Assault shooting. All of the following applies to a unit. Unengaged and made an advance move. So in order to do assault shooting, you have to advance. And then you can shoot all of your assault weapons. So basically, you have to have an assault weapon to do an assault shooting. And you have to select only assault weapons to make attacks with. So interesting. So this basically means we still have the problem probably where if you have a firing deck with an assault weapon, but your vehicle doesn't have assault, you still can't shoot. Maybe they clear that up in the firing deck portion here, but yeah, makes sense. Close quarter shooting. Yeah, you have to be in engagement range and not been advanced. So both has to be true. I don't know how you would advance into engagement range, but sure, that I guess. And you have to have at least one close quarters weapon, or you are a monster vehicle. So basically, they just consolidated big guns never tire into this thing, which is honestly pretty decent. I like that. You shoot, blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Monster vehicles get -1 to hit unless they shoot with close quarters. You cannot shoot blast into combat. Makes complete sense to me. And you can only shoot your close quarters weapon if you are engaged with the enemy unit you are shooting. And then until the end of phase, you are not eligible to start an action. Makes perfect sense to me. Okay. Indirect shooting. So this is now a separate type of shooting. Let's see how that goes. You can't be unengaged and you can't make an advance move. And you have to have indirect. Okay, so this means if your indirect weapon has assault, you can't assault indirect. That doesn't work. Indirect means you have to be normal moving or standing still. So if you give a unit of Desolation Marines assault, and then you walk out of a building to shoot your rockets, you cannot shoot the indirect guns at something you can't see, because you are not allowed to make an advance move if you want to use indirect fire. Okay. Yeah, all of your indirect fire weapons can target things you are not seeing. The thing you target has the benefit of cover. You cannot reroll hit rolls, so no oath of moment for this. You also fail at a 1 to 5. Unless you were stationary and the target is visible to something else, in which case you hit on a 4, so 1 in 3 fails. Okay. And you can't do an action. This is pretty interesting. This is interesting. And also it says you can still target all of its other weapons and whatever you want. So you can still just make shooting attacks as always. Okay. The charge phase. Now this is going to be where the most changes will be, I assume. Start of the charge phase. Anything that's triggered at that. That is the +2 strat from Reclamation Force, for example. You now pick each model that is allowed to declare a charge, and you pick the order in which you want to roll charges. In order to declare a charge, you have to be within 12. You can't be engaged, and you can't have advanced or fallen back, of course. Make a charge roll. You just roll d6, and that is the distance you roll. So no +1 for like engagement range, I guess. Attempt the charge. If it's possible to make a charge move and you still want to, make a charge move. Otherwise, do not a charge move. Okay. If it's possible to make it, and if you still want to, you can just stay still. You don't have to charge. So you roll like a double 6, and then you realize I really don't want to charge my sentinel into this unit of blade guard. I'll just stay still. Even though I rolled, I'm like, no, forget about it. Okay, pretty good. This just means you don't have to call a judge over if you roll a charge that's like bad. This would have saved me at the super major where I accidentally charged a lieutenant and gave Calgar, my opponent's Calgar, a heroic, and that slingshot into my deployment zone. That was terrible. Big flub. So that can't happen anymore. Okay. Charge move. Maximum distance, the charge roll. Your unit declared a charge. Your unit moves as described in moving, so you can move through your own models. You don't have, you cannot end in engagement range unless it's the unit you charged and something. And everything in your range is now a charge target. So you can charge anything you want as long as you can move within one of those targets. So if you can move within one, you have to, but you don't have to base anymore. Okay, that is interesting. Good to know. But you also have to roll the thing. So this 1 inch doesn't count towards your charge. So if you roll a 7, you can only charge if your opponent is exactly 7 inches away. So you must be engaged with all of your charge targets, blah, blah, blah. You cannot engage with something that isn't a charge target, blah, blah, blah. And you get the fight's first ability for charging. Okay, that still works. And here we have a thing. So you rolled a 7 for your little bike, the one bike. And it can technically charge the berserkers over here. It can charge the things over here. It cannot charge the berserkers down here. It can also charge the demon twins. Okay, so this is basically how that would work. Okay. Fight phase. Here we go. Start of the fight phase. Rules the trigger. Okay, pile in. Both players make pile in moves with all of their units they choose to move. The eligible if section describes which units are eligible to make a move. The players whose turn it is resolves all of their moves first, following by the opponent. So if you charge, you do all of your pile ins. So this is no longer how you do it, how you used to do it before, where you activate the unit and then you pile in and then you take the other unit and then you pile in. Now you pile in all at once. Okay. If it's the fight phase, you have to be engaged, you have to have a charge made, or you have to make an overrun fight. Okay, interesting. So if you do an overrun fight, you can do that again, essentially, whatever that means. Your unit moves as described in moving, blah, blah, blah. Select, it's not a normal move though, it's a pile-in move, as it says right here. So, before moving, select the pile-in targets. If a unit is engaged, every enemy unit is engaged with, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, select one unit within 5 of your units. Okay, so you can, okay, so you can move towards something that is within 5. even if you can't reach it. Oh no, you can, because engagement range is 2 inches. That makes perfect sense. Yes, I get it. Okay, because you can fight if you are 2 inches away. That makes perfect sense. Good. Models in base contact cannot be moved. Makes sense to me. And you have to move closer and engaged with the pile in target, with the closest target. Okay. Okay, here we go. We have some pile in stuff. So both units made a charge. All right. So yeah, the Demon Prince killed its charge target before the fighting happened. So it can now also make a pile-in move, even though it doesn't have something, and then can go into some other unit. And the Berserkers charged the Rhino, so they can now pile into the Rhino. Okay, so it makes perfect sense to me. Fight. A unit is eligible to fight and have not been. So we are done with the charge phase. The fight phase. Okay. So if you are engaged. If it has not started a fight, it is engaged or was engaged at the start of this step. It made a charge move this turn. Interesting. Okay. At the start of this step. So this basically means you no longer have these scenarios in which a unit that is fighting has to be able to get to basically, if you are in a combat and you have to pull models out of combat in order to like keep coherency, and you are no longer engaged, you can now, you used to be not be able to fight because technically you didn't charge, so you don't get to activate unless you have something within 1. Now it says at the start of this step, if you had an engagement, you can still pile in and fight. Which makes sense because you are piling in the charge phase now, not in the fight phase. So okay, interesting. Okay, still this could be interesting. This could still be something. So yeah, okay. So you can fight. Okay. Here we go. Resolve fight first combat. Starting with the player whose turn it is. Players alternate using friendly fight first units and select them to fight. So we are going back to 8th and 9th edition Fight First, where Fight First is basically useless if you charge, and Fight First is useless if you get charged. This is a massive downside for Fight First units. You now want to use them offensively and just pretend their rule doesn't exist. Basically, the only way Fight First matters at all is if you get charged in multiple places, or if you are in a combat that goes on for more than 1 round, which is uncommon because things die in 40k. That just happens. So that also means, though, you can now just charge a bunch of scary fight first units. Yeah, I have an opinion on this. I think most fight first units were not worth worrying about. Something like Judicia Blade Guard, I didn't care. If I had to charge them, I would just charge them anyway. I didn't care if they got to hit me first because they didn't do any damage. Though there were some exceptions, of course. You don't want to tangle with Lionel Johnson or with 10 Witches in Lilith Hesperax. Those were exceptions or examples for fight first being pretty problematic, especially for melee armies. So fight first, and then you do resolve remaining combats. Okay. It's engaged and does fight as in making attacks. That's good. Overrun fight. If your unit is unengaged or was unengaged at the start of the fight step, but became engaged during the fight phase, it can now move pile in and then attack. Okay, so interesting. So you were engaged by your opponent going into you. You can then pile in and do your thing. Okay, that is what an overrun fight is. Okay, there will be an example here. So, okay, so these models disembark from the Dead Rhino. The Corn Berserkers now move into the. Oh, okay, so the Demon Prince fights and kills the Rhino. The Berserkers who made a charge but no longer have one can now make an overrun fight and pile in again into the blue unit and then charge them too. Interesting. So this is a pretty good way to get rid of screens. Okay. 4. Consolidation moves. Both players make consolidation moves with all of the units eligible if the player whose turn it is resolves it first, followed by the opponent. Okay. Consolidation move. If your unit is engaged, you must select every enemy unit is engaged with and then just move into combat. Engaging consolidation, you can move. If your unit is within 3 or more enemy units, you must select this mode and then move into them. Okay, so this is 3 inches again instead of 5. Okay, if your unit is within 3 of an objective, you can then move on to the objective. And it's also otherwise. So if you don't have an ongoing and you don't have an engaging, you can then move an objective one. And it is saying it says unit moves and not models move. If your unit. Okay, so if one model of your unit can go into another unit, it has to. Even though 9 models could go on the objective, you have to go into the unit first. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Models in base to base can't move, blah blah. Models have to move in engagement range, blah blah. Models have to be moved in objective if it's possible or closer if not. Okay. Okay, that part makes perfect sense to me. So here we go. So the berserkers can now pile into the sisters because they hit them, and then the demon prince can now consolidate into the objective, which is now terrain. Keep that in mind. Okay, that was a lot of stuff. So what is my review of this? I'm pretty interesting to see how this plays out. I got a game on Wednesday of trying out the new rules for the first time. I'm pretty excited about that. It will be pretty fun, I hope. And and I will be reporting back and give you my first impressions of my first game whenever that happens. Okay. Next, we are halfway done. Jesus. Battlefields and tactics. Okay, placing terrain. This is now probably just for creating your own thing. So if you don't have a competitive guide on how to set up your terrain, you just have to say, here's a terrain piece. It is pretty clearly this area because there's a footprint on your game mat, or you put down a piece of cardboard, or your terrain feature has a base because it's like a forest with trees in it. You get the idea. That's basically what that is. Okay. Exposed terrain. Craters, razor wire, debris. Okay, light terrain. That's some barricades and some low walls. Dense terrain. That is buildings, ruins, and trees. Oh, trees are now dense terrain. This is amazing because it now means not every battlefield has to be a ruin. Interesting. So here we go. Terrain on a mat. Here we have a little terrain footprint and 2 terrain pieces. That's great. Dense terrain, light terrain. Okay. Free terrain features have been placed directly on the battlefield. The players have agreed on the boundary defined by the thing. The blue features are dense terrain and the red features are light terrain. Okay, so only the dense terrain features count as dense and this little ruin is just light. Okay. Terrain and movement. Exposed and light. Every model can move horizontally, vertically through exposed and light terrain. Okay, so you can just move through walls and stuff as long as you don't and you move on the wall. Okay, dense terrain. Swarms, here we go. Infantry, beasts, swarm, and mobile units can move horizontally through dense terrain. Infantry, beasts, swarm can move vertically through dense terrain. So mobile units can't move up and down, if I see that correctly. No, the other way around. Excuse me, vertically. So mobile units can cheat their way onto a second floor, but they can't move through a wall. Okay. I have no idea what a mobile unit is, but maybe we'll find it out. Other models can move horizontally through terrain features if they are less than 2 inches in height. If all the terrain features on the. Oh, okay. So if you move over this small wall, you can move your tank over it, even though it's a dense terrain feature, but you can't move your big vehicle through the big wall. Okay. So makes sense to me. Moving vertically, must within. You just measure up and down. Okay, that's not a problem. Setting up or ending a move. Models can be set up on a ground level floor on terrain features if the following applies. It has to be infantry, beast, swarm, fly, and monster, and the base doesn't overhang the edge of the level. Okay, interesting. Okay, solid terrain. If a terrain feature has the solid rule, a model cannot end a move such as any part of its enclosed features within free or the I don't know what that means. Okay. So yeah. So the demon prince can't walk through this wall, but he can move through this side. The corn berserkers can move through the wall. Good. That makes complete sense. Oh, every model can climb up and down. Okay. But a vehicle can't end on the thing. Ooh. So wait, why can't the demon prince go through the thing? Wait, what? Why can't the demon prince go up and down? All sections of this dense terrain are more than 2 inches in height, so this model cannot move through it and has to move around. But here it says the vehicle cannot move through the dense terrain, but it can move vertically and ascend. What is the difference here? I don't get it. Huh. Comment section, please tell me. Page 49. I don't understand what the difference is. Why can't the demon prince climb up and down on the wall, but the walker can go up and down on this container here? It's both dense terrain. Yeah, it's all dense terrain. I don't get it. Okay, I don't understand this one. You guys have to figure that out for me. Okay. Terrain visibility. The benefit of cover, hidden, obscuring, and solid. Okay, let's go. The benefit of cover. Now, this is important. Previously, it used to be +1 to your save. Now, let's see what it is. The benefit of cover. Each time a range attack targets this unit, if every model meets one of the conditions, that unit has the benefit of cover. That model has the infantry swarm beast keyword and is within a terrain feature, not wholly within. The model is not fully visible, and that's that. Okay, so that means if you can see 1 out of 10 models, they don't get cover. That is not how that used to work. Previously, 9 of them had cover, but the other ones didn't. Pretty interesting. Okay, good to know. Each time a ranged attack targets the unit with the benefit of cover, worsen the ballistic skill characteristic by 1. So this is now Warhammer Fantasy. Not exactly, because in that game you can just stack penalties no matter how many there are, but interesting. So this is interesting. So it is now -1 to hit instead of +1 save. This obviously massively benefits units that have a good way to roll hits. So if your unit hits on 2s in shooting, that's obviously not as big of a debuff. And it obviously benefits units with low AP shooting. So all of your AP1 guns are a lot better now. Because AP1 used to be the worst number in the game for shooting. This probably means I'm putting my heavy intercessor back on blast. That sounds pretty neat. Sounds pretty neat. I like that. Okay. Hidden. A model is hidden while all of the following apply. The model has to be within a terrain that includes a dense terrain feature. Okay. The model did not make any move, did not make any range attacks. Okay, not melee attacks, just range attacks. While the model is hidden, it can only be visible if you are within 15 inches. Okay. And it's visible to the models within detection range. So, two things I immediately noticed here. Number one, if you have a unit outside of 15. Like you have a unit within 24 of a unit, and you have some scouts within like 15 of that unit. The scouts can shoot at it, but the unit that is outside of 15 on 24 can't, because it is per unit. However, it mentions the word visible, which means indirect shooting ignores visibility. That means if you go within 15 of a hidden unit, your indirect piece can now shoot it on 4+ instead of on 6s. You can always shoot something with indirect if it's hidden, because you ignore the visibility part. Pretty interesting. That's really interesting, actually. Obscuring. Terrain areas containing one or more light or dense terrain features are obscuring terrain areas. If every line of sight drawn between two models crosses one or more obscuring terrain areas, they cannot see each other, so it's not visible. So, same as before, just if you put some barricades on a small base, it's also obscuring. So that's basically how it worked before, but I saw on a plenty of tournaments, if you put down like an empty footprint base, people would always ask if they can see through it. Solid. Dense terrain features have the solid rule. Line of sight cannot be drawn across any enclosed gap in the surface, such as a terrain feature that is 3" or less from ground level. So, if you have a window or a door that isn't at a height of 3.1, or no, it is the entire terrain feature, right? Cannot be drawn across any enclosed gap in the surface of such a terrain feature that is 3 or less from the ground level. Is that referring to the gap or to the feature? Because if the window is 4" high, can you then see through the window? Or does it have to be like on another floor? I assume it means the actual gap you can see through has to be below 3". Okay, that's what I assume. Maybe there's a diagram. Okay, benefit of cover. Here we go. Unit E is making attacks. Unit A is fully visible and does not have the benefit of cover. Unit B does not have cover because you can see one model or two models that don't have cover. Okay. And then Unit C, because it's wholly within the feature, and Unit B, because it's halfway covered as a single model, gets cover. Okay, good to know. Here we go. Unit C is further away than 15, which means they can't see it. Unit B is within 15, so they can see it. And Unit A is neither within 15, but it isn't on the terrain feature, so it doesn't get hidden. But it is not visible because it's behind the footprint. Okay, good to know. And here we go. Okay, here we go. Units A and B are not visible to each other, because even though there is a small window in this dense terrain feature, it has the solid rule. Okay, so this window doesn't count. So because this is one terrain feature, this is what I meant. So the window has to be the thing that is below 3". Okay, so this is basically a little house rule every single event I have ever played at has played with. Just the windows are closed, just to make the hobbying stuff easier. Because if you don't have all the windows are closed, people will just print straight solid walls without any decoration and put that as your terrain. That is just how that would work in practice. Good to know. Okay. Objectives. Here we go. Objectives represent critical locations that both sides are attempting to secure, and many missions require your forces to take control of them to achieve victory. This section describes how to do this with your models. If a model uses objectives, it will state where they are located on the battlefield. Typically, your mission will have a deployment map showing several points where the objectives should be placed. The location of each point should coincide with a terrain area. That terrain area is the objective and is called a terrain objective. Okay. When measuring distances to and from an objective, measure to and from the closest part of it. Okay. At the start of the battle, no objective on the battlefield is controlled by either player. Okay, nobody has an objective when the game starts. To gain control of an objective, a player will need one or more models with an OC characteristic within range of it. A model is within range of an objective if it is within the terrain. Makes sense to me. So terrain is objectives now. At the end of each phase and turn, determine phase and turn. Okay, good. To determine a player's level of control, add together the OC and then you control it. So this means at the end of your command phase, you don't sticky an objective if you go first. So if you go first, you don't sticky your home objective because you don't control it until the end of your command phase, in which case it's already too late for your beginning of command phase thing to do the thing. Okay. Yeah, if you have more OC, you control it. Otherwise, it's contested, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Securing an objective. Similar to long objective secured, blah, blah, blah. If your opponent has more objective control than you, then they take the secure objective away. Makes sense to me. Yeah. Here we go. OC2, OC3, 6 models with OC1, 2 models with OC2, so that is a 6, that's an 8, and that's a 5, so the red player controls the objective. Okay, makes perfect sense. Oh, this unit is battle shock. Never mind. In that case, it's 0. So now it's 5 to 6. Still, the red player therefore controls the objectives. Okay, good to know. Stratagems. Using stratagems. During the battle, each player can use stratagems. How many CP does it cost to use? Command points. When it can be used, target, effect, restriction. Okay. Okay, new rule. Players cannot use the same stratagem more than once in the same phase. And unless otherwise stated, each player cannot use the same unit with more than one stratagem in the same phase. Okay, so if you have a stratagem, hypothetically, that gives you +2 to your charges, you can no longer reroll your charge with a CP for that unit. That is a big deal. Oh boy, that is a big deal. RIP Reclamation Force, but maybe we can make it work. Select targets in this script thing, and then if you have 2 CP and you spend 1 CP for a 1 CP strat, then you have 1 CP remaining. Okay. Core stratagems. All players can use core stratagems, and additional strats can be found in codexes and other stuff. Okay. Makes sense to me. Heroic intervention. Okay. Here we go. This sounds like something new because there's more text than before. Heroic intervention. One command point. End of your opponent's charge phase. Select one friendly unengaged unit within 12. You can only select a vehicle if it is a character or walker. Okay. Also, this means the Silent King can use it now. It couldn't before. The Silent King can now heroic. That's new. Resolve a charge with your unit. And before making the roll, select one of the following modes. Leap to defend. When selecting a charge target, you can only select enemy units that made a charge move this phase and are within the maximum distance. Okay, so you can roll a charge, but you have to engage a unit that has charged you. So you can't just charge any random thing. Into the fray. When making a charge roll, if the results is greater than a 6 after modifier, change it to a 6. So maximum 6 inches. When selecting charge target, you can select anything within 6. Okay, so you can spend heroic in order to charge something within 6. This means a bunch of stratagems are now redundant, kind of. Because they have these end of charge phase, charge something for CP. I guess you can do it multiple times, but this is basically the same thing. This makes heroic intervention for free with like Sicarius or Tigurius a lot better. Ultramarines, this is pretty good. I like this. This is pretty awesome. Command reroll. One command point, you can reroll an advance roll, charge roll, damage roll, hazard roll, hit roll, wound roll, save roll. Okay. and a roll to determine the number of attacks you have. Okay, so no mission rerolls, no feel no pain rerolls, all of that stuff. Okay, explosives. One friendly unengaged unit with explosives and grenades that is eligible to shoot and did not make an advance move. So you can't advance, you can't be engaged, but if you have fallback and shoot, you can use it. Yes. Yeah, you do the grenade thing. It's the same thing. Okay, good. Has to be visible. Epic challenge. Select a friendly character unit is selected to fight. Blah, blah, blah. Select one character model. That unit has precision. Makes sense. Insane bravery. Once per battle, automatically pass a battle shock check in the battle shock step. So you can't auto pass any battle shock, just the one. Crushing impact. This is now tank shock. Monsters can now use it. I don't like this. If you want to know more, ask me about it in the comments. I hate the fact that monsters can use this. I would rather have said it can only be a vehicle and not a walker in order to counteract heroic intervention up top. Okay. And it is still number of dice equal to the toughness. Each 5 up is a model wound. Okay. Rapid ingress. At the end of your opponent's movement phase, you can make an ingress move. Good. Good to know. Ingress move means you can just put it from reserve onto the battlefield outside of like 9 or whatever the distance is. Smoke screen. A unit. Okay. So you get cover if you activate smoke, and if your unit using smoke is in the way of another unit, that unit also gets cover. That's actually pretty cool. I like that. That is actually pretty cool. Oh, this is actually pretty awesome because infiltrators and incursors and I believe scouts have the smoke keyword. So if you put 5 scouts in front of your blade guard and then you use smoke on those scouts, the blade guard also gets smoke. That means Tiguri as blade guard is -2 to hit. That's pretty spicy. Okay. Overwatch. End of the opponent's movement phase, so no more charge phase. One unengaged unit, excluding Titanic. Suck it, knights. Get effed. Hate you guys. Your units are using snap shooting. What that is, we will see below. You can only target one visible unit within 24, and if it's eligible, so it has to be. It can't be a lone op. It can't be something that says you can't shoot me. It can't be something that's hidden on a terrain feature. Something like that. Each attack only hits on a unmodified 6+. You cannot re-roll the hit roll. Interesting. Heroic intervention. Oh, we just read that. Or did they print it twice? I guess they did. Counteroffensive. 2 command points. Here we go. +1 CP. Oh, I see. It's a modifier. Oh, okay. So the charge whatever you want costs 2 command points instead of 1. So if you want to heroic as normal, it's 1, and if you want to do the 6-inch charge into whatever, it has to be. Yeah, okay. I get it. I get what that means. Okay. Counteroffensive. After an enemy unit has fought, you can pick something and fight. So, yeah, the same as it always was. Good stratagem, really useful to play with this correctly. If you are ever playing against the melee army, this one is a good one to know. Okay. Actions. Here we go. This is how you score points. The actions will be found on your mission deck secondaries, because I doubt there will be secondaries in this book. Performing actions. It starts when it starts. Use limit. How many times can units start it? Oh, that's pretty good. Now this is just a little tag here, and you don't have to read the entire text again. A unit can do an action except for the following reasons. It's not on the battlefield. Makes sense. It's an aircraft or a fortification. So you can't go Storm Raven +1 OC with Gilliman and then do cleanse. That used to be a thing. Pretty funny. Battle Shocked, okay. Has an OC of 0 or dash. Okay, so these are kind of exclusive, but that's what that is. If you're engaged, unless Titanic, it no longer says character. So you can now do an action with a Titanic model that isn't a character. Made an advance or fallback, started another action. Okay. If it started an action, it can't shoot, except Titanic, and it can't charge, including Titanic. Okay. Completing an action. If a unit performing an action makes a move for any reason or leaves the battlefield, it does not complete the action. Good to know. Example for illustrative purposes only. Okay. Example action cannot be used. This is just okay. Your shooting phase. Okay. Units. One infantry unit within a terrain feature. Once per turn, completes end of turn. Effect, set up one marker within one of your units and within the terrain feature. I guess. Alright. Advanced rules. Okay. So this is gonna be pretty spicy. I did not expect all of this to be here. So let's go. Moving monsters and vehicles. Each time, blah blah blah. A monster and vehicle can be moved through friendly and enemy models, excluding other vehicles and monsters. Okay. So if you move in you can now move vehicles through other vehicles if they're your own, but you can't move a vehicle through an opponent's vehicle. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. This is new, but makes sense. Frame. Some models do not have a base. Many of these are monster vehicle models. Such models have the frame keyword. Oh. As do some other large models. Whenever a model refers to a model's position in relation to anything else on the battlefield, the model has the frame keyword, unless otherwise stated, may measure to and from the closest point of that model. Not necessarily its base if it has one. When rotating a frame as part of a model, if that model does not have a base, turn it any amount on its central axis while keeping it upright. Okay. Okay, it doesn't say anything about antenna and stuff. Okay. Shooting at engaged monsters and vehicles. In your shooting phase, enemy monster and vehicle units are engaged, can be selected as target of range attacks. Okay. Each time a model makes an attack that targets such a model, subtract -1, excluding close quarters if you are engaged with the target. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So these berserkers shoot their pistol at the tank. They're not engaged with it, so their close combat shooting doesn't actually have the hit ignore. If the tank shoots the berserkers, it has -1 to hit because it's in combat with the berserkers. If the berserkers shoot the tank, the berserkers do not have -1 to hit because they're in combat with a close quarter weapon. Okay. Transports. Now this will be interesting because every single time transports are busted and broken. Let's see what transports do in this edition of the game. Transport capacity. And transport models have a capacity listed on the datasheet. They include the type and maximum units they can embark, blah blah. Okay. Before they declare battle formations, your unit can start embarked within a friendly transport if it has enough capacity. Okay. And you can still put multiple units in one transport. That also works. Embarking. Once the first battle round has started, a friendly unit can embark within a friendly transport after making a normal, fallback, or advance move if all of the following apply. Each model is within 3, not wholly within. The unit was not set up on the battlefield this turn. Okay, so you can't deep strike in, shoot, and then make like a normal move into the transport. Okay. Rest in peace. Rest in peace, that Strat from Firestorm with Uriel Ventris, I guess. And you have to have enough space and be the unit type that is referring to. Okay, makes sense. If you put it to the side, it is now in the transport. Okay, blah blah blah. Disembarking. In the active player's movement phase, each friendly unit from embarked can disembark. If a transport model is disembarked, if a transport model is destroyed before removing it from the battlefield, the active player must make an emergency disembark move. Okay, so two kinds of disembarks: emergency and normal. Normal disembark, 3 inches. Combat disembark, 6 inches. Okay, whatever does that mean? Okay, the transports on the battlefield, you did not embark within it in this phase, and the transport did not advance or fall back. Makes sense to me. Before moving, select a disembark mode. So there's 2 actually. Okay, rapid disembark. If that transport made a normal or ingress move, you must select this mode. Tactical disembark. Otherwise, if the transport remains stationary or has not been selected to move yet, you can do this. Combat disembark. Otherwise, you must select this and then make a hazardous roll. Okay. Rapid disembark. If the transport made an ingress move, each model must follow the same rules that transport had to follow while ending that move. Okay. Oh yeah, makes okay. So if your transport comes out of reserve and then you disembark, you also have to be further away than 9. That makes sense to me. And it has to be a rapid disembark. Yeah. Combat disembark. Each model can be set up engaged with one or more enemy units that is engaged with. Okay, so if you while moving, you can do a combat disembark, but you take damage because you have to make hazardous rolls. Okay, that is spicy. I that is pretty spicy. Okay. After moving. After moving. So before moving, while moving, after moving. Okay, so while moving. Uh, oh, so if the transport is in combat, you can then disembark into combat. I now I get what that is supposed to mean. Okay. After moving. So you finish your move. I was confused because it was while moving. If it's engaged, it's not moving. Okay. After moving. Rapid disembark. Until end of turn, your unit is not eligible to declare charge. So if your transport moved or came out of reserves, you cannot charge. Tactical. If you get out before the transport moves, you can make a normal and advanced move and obviously still charge. Combat disembarked. Your unit is battle shocked and until the end of turn, not eligible to declare a charge. Okay. So if you disembark into combat, you are now battle shocked and you can't charge. Oh, makes sense. Okay. Yeah. If the transport made a normal move, if the transport remains stationary, and if it's other than that, so if you have to disembark, unless you are normal moving or stationary, you then make a combat one. I don't know when that would happen, but I guess it can. Okay. After moving. Oh, no, here we go. Emergency disembark. Emergency disembark. Your unit is embarked within a transport that was just destroyed. Okay. Your unit is set up as they described in setup. Makes sense. You make a hazardous for each model in your unit. You are setting up within 6, and each model must be as close as possible to the transport. So if you can touch the transport, you have to touch it. I see. And this only applies to the emergency disembark. Interesting. Okay. Makes sense to me. So if your rhino blows up next to a terrain feature and you have more than like 4 models, you then have to wrap around your own rhino in order to get this full contact, which might mean you are not in cover if you disembark. You also can't declare a charge and you are battle shocked. Okay. That is a lot of stuff. So, interestingly enough, you are now getting out before doing anything else. So, so the transport is destroyed, you make a hazardous, and then you set up the stuff. I am pretty sure that means if there's deadly demise, that now also hits the unit that has to get out. Okay. Attached units. Bop, bop, bop. We have leaders and support. Okay. Some units have the leader or support ability listed on data sheets. Such units are known as leader units and support units. Both of these units allows units to lead friendly units to form attached units. An attached unit is a single unit for all purposes. Leader and support can only lead specific units as listed on the app. Okay. Bop, bop, bop. Before the battle, in the muster army step, for each leader and support unit, you select one friendly bodyguard unit it can lead. That unit will then lead the bodyguard unit. But you can select. Okay, so you can still run the solo Gravis Captain. That is still allowed. Unless otherwise stated, each bodyguard unit can only have one leader and one support attached to it. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So I assume this would be like a captain and a lieutenant, basically. And the lieutenant would be support. That's what I assume that means. Each time an attack targets an attached unit, if that unit contains one or more bodyguard models, use the highest toughness of the bodyguard. Even if a leader or support has a different toughness. Okay. If that unit only contains leader and support models, the highest toughness is instead. Excuse me. Interestingly, it doesn't say character anymore. It says leader and support. So this rules change would have disabled the Marnir's Calgar thing, because now the bodyguard, the Victrix guard with the shields are now considered leaders instead of characters, which was the problem before and why you could put wounds on them. Of course, that doesn't matter anymore because that unit is dead. So who cares? Rules that are triggered when a unit is destroyed are only triggered when the last model that started the battle in an attached unit is destroyed. Okay. Okay, so basically, if there's a unit of 10 possessed with a Chaos Lord, and I Oath of Moment them, and I destroy all 10 chosen or possessed or whatever, and then the Lord is left, my Oath of Moment from Gilliman doesn't flip over to another unit until that Chaos Lord dies. That is how I always played it, but it is good to finally have it in print. Keywords and attached units. An attached keyword unit has all the keywords of its components. Okay, so if you attach a Psyker to a unit, it's also a Psyker unit. Makes sense. Abilities in attached units. Okay, this sounds pretty interesting. Let's go. Abilities that affect a single specified model only apply to that model, even while part of an attached unit. So this would be the Liberatus from Reclamation Force, the thing that gives your individual model reroll hits and wounds against units on an objective. Otherwise, abilities and rules that affect a unit or models in it apply to every model until the source of that ability is destroyed. Okay. Okay, so this is basically the same as before, but it makes sense. So if your leader has an ability, you lose the ability until the leader is destroyed. If your bodyguard unit has an ability, you lose that ability as soon as the last bodyguard model is destroyed. And if a specific model is destroyed, you use that. Well, okay. You keep the rule until all the attacks are done, of course. Okay. Only endeavors to the end. Blah blah. Leader and support often have in the same way bodyguards can okay, if you revive one of those models, the rule will come back. So if you somehow figure out a way to revive the banner carrier in a company heroes unit, you will then get the +1 back. I guess that's what that means. Okay. Advanced strategic reserves. Placing unit in reserves. Okay, so you can put units into reserves instead of putting them on the battlefield. Okay. All of your reserve things have to be half of your army at max, including those embarked within transports that are in reserves. Okay, so half of your army has to be on the table. Makes sense to me. Repositioned units. Some rules allow units to be removed from the battlefield and placed in reserves during the battle. Units that use such rules are known as repositioned units. In addition to any other rules that apply to such units, that's where they can arrive. The following applies. If used in the movement phase, such rules can be used on units that have already moved. Okay. A repositioned unit that is set up in the same turn in which it made advance, fallback, and disembark still has made those same moves. Okay. When they are removed from the battlefield, any rules that are affecting those units are still affecting them. So if you are off of moment and you go off board, you are still off of moment when you come back. Okay. Makes complete sense. Arriving from reserves. Here we go. To arrive from the on the battlefield, each strategic unit must make an ingress move. See below. Now we're finally getting to what that means. So, setup distance 6 inches. Okay, your unit is in strategic reserves. Pop up. Your unit is set up as described in setup. Set up your unit wholly within setup distance of one or more battlefield edges, so within 6 of a table edge, and more than 8 away from enemy units. Okay, so in order to complete a charge, you now have to roll an 8. Previously, it used to be a 9. So now every deep strike is 9 inches. This also means screening is more difficult, especially in combination with the whole coherency thing. Pretty interesting. Okay. And you cannot make any other move until the charge phase. Unless otherwise stated, until the start of the next charge phase, your unit is not eligible to make any other type of move. Does that move while moving, after moving? Okay, after moving, unless otherwise stated until the... Does this mean if you set up a unit out of reserves, you cannot make, like, fire and fade? Is that what that means? Or is this just if you moved and then come back? Or if you moved, go off board, come back, you cannot move again with fire and fade? Or is it all of them? I guess I would tend to the latter. So I think, yeah, okay. At the end of the third battle round, unless otherwise stated, all strategic reserves that have not made one or more ingress moves are destroyed, with following exceptions. Units in transports that made an ingress move during the battle, and reposition units. Makes sense. Advanced. Flying and surging. Okay. Surge moves. Some rules allow a unit to make a surge move, as below. The rule has to be triggered. Your unit is not battle shocked. Your unit is not engaged. And that is a loud car in the background. Okay. Take marine help. Your unit is not battle shocked. Your unit is not engaged. Your unit hasn't moved this phase. Okay, so if you move and get overwatched, you can't surge anymore. Good to know. Okay. Before moving, select the closest enemy unit to be the search target. Each model must end its move engaged with the search target if possible. Okay. This is different from before. Each model that cannot end its move engaged with the search target must end its move as close as possible to the search target. So big change, because previously it said units have to do this, not models. That means previously, if you had a unit of Victrix Guard, you lose one guy in shooting, and there's a Rhino in front of you. You would move one guy in engagement range with the Rhino, so you now have fulfilled your duty to search, and every other model could move whatever distance you rolled anywhere else, as long as they are still in coherency. Which means you could just move onto an objective and just not care. Like, I'm engaged over here, and I'm moving 8 OC onto this objective. Pretty good. Your unit cannot be engaged with one or more enemy units that were not the search target. Your unit cannot move again this phase. Now, keep in mind, if you surge into combat, you don't attack first anymore. That is over. Unless you have fight first as an ability. Yeah, if you search with fight first into something and they don't have fight first, you would fight first because they don't. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so this guy shoots them and then they search into them. Okay, makes sense. Flying models. Models with the fly keyword can fly. Each time a model is selected to make a normal advance, it can the player can declare they will move to the skies when resolving that move. -2 to move, and then you ignore all vertical distances, and you can move through all kinds of models, including enemy vehicles and monsters. Okay, okay, okay. So if a flying monster can move through enemy monsters. Okay. And through all terrain. So this means we now have old flyback. That is terrifying. I do not want Tau and Eldar to move through walls again. That was horrendous. Especially because Eldar models move 20 inches. That sounds busted. On the other hand, my Storm Raven is going to friend shit up. That sounds pretty nuts. Aura abilities. Abilities that affect models within a stated range are aura abilities. They attack with the aura. My model with an aura is on the battlefield. It's always within range of its own aura while it's on the battlefield. So Be'lakor doesn't give himself shadow while he's not on the board. Important. A unit cannot be affected by more than one aura at a time. But if a unit is within range of the same aura ability more than once, the aura applies only once. Okay. Okay. This is a pretty interesting restriction, but right now there aren't that many aura abilities, I believe. Trying to think, what is an ultramarine aura ability that actually matters? So it would be Gilliman's +1 OC. That would be one. And I guess if you also have a box knot for reroll ones to hit, is there anything else I even remotely care about as an aura? The combi lieutenant used to have one, but that got data slated. It's no longer an aura. Pretty strange. Okay. Faction abilities. Some abilities are common to each that belongs to a faction. Those are faction abilities, also known as army rules. Oh, so they just changed that wording. They're listed in the faction of a datasheet. Unless otherwise stated, a unit's faction abilities only apply if the army faction you selected when mustering your army matches a faction keyword listed. So that means if you bring a knight into an imperial army, that knight doesn't have the knightly oaths rule, even though it says on the datasheet. And demons in CSM don't get the demonic shadow, whatever that thing is. So that doesn't work. Okay. Psychic abilities. Abilities tagged with the word psychic or psychic. And if psychic causes one or more models to wound, that damage is said to be inflicted by a psychic attack. Makes sense to me. War gear abilities. Abilities that are gained when a unit has a particular item. So war gear. Okay, so nothing interesting. Okay. Plunging fire. Each time a model makes a ranged attack that targets a visible unit on a ground level while it is not on the floor, it gets a improve characteristic of 1. If the target has towering and is within 12, +1 to hit. If the target is 3 inches up in height, +1 to hit. Okay, that's pretty nice, actually. Towering, huh. So knights have +1 to hit if they're within 12. And you can now scale up and down. The layouts most likely reflect all of this. Aircraft. Do I even bother reading this? All aircraft must start the game in reserves. Aircraft are only eligible to make an ingress move. They are not eligible to make any other type of move. Okay, so they go on the board. At the end of your opponent's turn, all aircraft units in your armies must be placed in reserves. Okay. Each time a unit makes any type of move, its model can be moved for aircraft unit. Okay, so they don't count as being there, except for the whatever. Each time a unit makes a pylon, consolidation, or search move, unless that unit can fly while making this move, ignore aircraft for the purposes. Okay. Being engaged solely with one or more aircraft models does not prevent a unit from being eligible to make normal or advanced moves. So you don't count as being engaged with an aircraft unless you are also an aircraft. Shooting. The plunging fire rule has no effect on attacks made by or targeting aircraft rules. Okay, makes sense. Charging and fighting. Aircraft cannot declare a charge and can only make melee attacks that target flying units. Yeah, of course, because you have to have flying to charge them. Only flying units can select aircraft as a charge target, and only flying models can make the melee attacks that target aircraft. Okay, so aircraft can no longer just look through windows and bases and ignore all the terrain. That is good, but aircraft is now basically playing up down every single turn. So instead of moving and doing the weird 180 pivots, they show up, they shoot. If your opponent doesn't kill them, they leave and then they come back in. So every single turn you have an aircraft model within like 6 inches of the battlefield edge and then shoot. Or if it has deep strike, it comes in wherever. Okay. That's aircraft. Good to know. Reference. Abilities. Here's some core abilities. Lethal hits and stuff. Okay, duplicated abilities. Multiple instances do not stack. If you have multiple instances, you just use the better one or the worst one. For scouts, it's the worst one. Makes sense. Okay, yeah, okay. And it depends on the weapon, of course. Okay. Anti-X plus. Okay. That's the same. So, whatever the anti-X is, it has a roll plus. So anti-vehicle 4-up will always crit on a 4-up. Okay. Blast. Each time you get a blast, add 1 additional attack die for every 5 model that was in the target unit before select target, rounding down. So 16 models would be like 15, and that gives 3 extra dice. Okay, makes sense. If this ability takes the form of Blast X, each time you get the attack dice or chance weapon, add X additional dice. Ooh, so a Blast 2 weapon shooting at 5 models would get 10 extra shots. Sounds pretty good. Assault. You can shoot with assault shooting. Good. Cleave. This one I was really excited for. Cleave X. Each time you get an attack dice, you get an additional attack for each 5 models in the target unit. And X is the number of attacks. So if you have Cleave 1, 1 extra attack per 5 models, and then the 2-step. It's melee blast. This rule is amazing, and I wish they would have put this into 10th edition. I was flabbergasted they didn't come up with this. This is such an instantly sensible way to make things like chain swords actually good. Amazing. I love this. Cleave is amazing. Please give cleave to like a bunch of stuff. Maybe you can even replace a bunch of the sweep profiles just by giving stuff cleave. That would make so much sense. Close quarters. That means you can shoot in combat. Good. Deep strike. You can set up anywhere, but still outside of 8. So this is basically just the same as it was, just with 8 inches. Deadly demise. Each time a unit is destroyed, after the units have made their disembark moves, roll 1d6. On a 6, every model takes mortal wounds. So confirmed, you now take your explosion damage after you get out. It was pretty weird that on average the unit that was in the transport took the least damage from the transport being destroyed. That made no sense at all. If it exploded, like a Land Raider with 5 guys in it would explode, and then like 10 units around the Land Raider would take like 15 mortal wounds, and then the unit inside takes 1. That was weird. Devastating wounds. Each time a devastating wound is a critical wound, the attack sequence ends. The target unit suffers a mortal wounds equal to the damage. They are inflicted after resolving any normal damage inflicted by those attacks. Again, those attacks, not all attacks, those attacks. Mortal wounds inflicted by devastating wound weapons can damage a maximum of one model for each critical wound. Any remaining mortal wounds inflicted are lost. So those are models that don't spill over, same as right now. Okay. Extra attacks. Each time a model with extra attacks can fight, it can select and fight with extra attacks. Good. They still saying they can't be modified? They do not. Okay. Feel no pain. Same as always. Feel no pain is still the one way you have to actually slow roll your stuff. Because that is actually important how many feel no pains you pass. So still the thing. Fights first, I explained it's a lot worse than it used to be. Thankfully, it's a keyword now. Like one you can actually like look up. Firing deck. Here we go. Bup, bup, bup. Firing deck X. If in your shooting phase, each time a transport is selected to shoot, if one or more units embarked within resolve the following sequence. Select up to X models embarked within this transport, excluding models who have already been selected to shoot. So you can't do the shoot, get in, shoot again thing. So we can hopefully finally drop those eliminators in points, right? Yep. Select one of its ranged weapons for each model. No one-shot weapons. Units in transports are not eligible to shoot. Oh, so if you kill your own impulsor with hazardous and then get out with your hellblasters can't shoot. Makes perfect sense to me. Until this transport has resolved all its attacks, it has all of those selected weapons in addition to its other weapons. I still think you can't. I still think you can't do an assault shooting unless the transport has assault. Even if the units inside have assault. I still think that doesn't work. Because in order to do the assault shooting, you have to have an assault weapon. And you only check what firing deck weapons you have after you select it to shoot. Hazardous. Talked about that. Heavy. Interesting. If you are not set up on the field, you are not engaged, and you didn't move more than 3 inches, you get +1 to your hit roll. That is a pretty big buff. Moving 3 inches is a lot better than moving 0 inches. Pretty good. Infiltrators. During deployment, if every model in that unit has ability, can set up anywhere that is more than 8 inches apart from your opponent. Did they change the 8 to 9 from 9 to 8 just to mess with everyone who bought one of those 9-inch widgets? Is that what they actually did? Because that would be so annoying. Hover. Some airborne vehicles can use vectored thrusters or anti-gravity to hover and skim through the battlefield. Each time this unit takes to the skies, do not subtract 2 from the maximum distance. But airplanes don't move. Does this mean... Does that mean vehicles with hover are not aircraft? Wait, let me scroll up. I want to know that. What does aircraft say? Okay. Okay, so how is this supposed... So right now, this is broken, right? Because unless the Storm Raven loses the aircraft keyword, it has to be played as an aircraft, and it has a rule that doesn't work. That is really strange. Okay, how does that work? I guess they have to take it away from the Storm Raven? Yeah, each time it takes to the skies. Phew, I don't know. I assume this means the Storm Raven is dead. That's what I'm reading. Okay. Ignores cover. Ignores all benefits of cover and rules that would give cover, like stealth. Good to know. Indirect fire. You can do indirect shooting. Good. Lethal hits. If you roll a crit, you automatically wound. Great. They cannot trigger devastating wounds, so still a thing. Lance. If you made a charge move, +1 to wound. So this is the same. I heard a rumor Lance changed, but Lance looks like it's the same. Yeah, looks the same to me. Okay. Lone operative. Okay. Unless part of the attached unit is not visible, this unit is not visible unless attached or if an enemy unit is within 12, and it cannot be targeted with indirect fire outside of 12. Okay, good. It can also be lone op X. This is new. Okay, I like this. This is granularity. So if they want to make something that has lone op 18, they can just write lone op 18 instead of always writing if it's not visible within 12 and 80, blah blah blah. Blah. So instead of writing 10 different rules that do the same thing, just write lone op 5 and it's 5 inches, or write lone op 20 and it's 20 inches. Stuff like that. One shot. If you resurrect the unit with a one-shot weapon, you don't get the one-shot weapon back. If a new unit is added, all of its one-shot units weapons are back. Makes sense. You can only use each weapon once per battle. Makes sense. Melter. Melter X. If it's within half range during the target step, add +X to the damage. Makes sense. Pistol. Close quarters. The same thing. Designer's Not Pissed is a pre-existing ability that will be superseded by close combat as the edition progresses. Makes sense. It's the same thing. They're just gonna replace pistol with close quarters. I don't know why. What's the problem with pistols? But I don't know. Precision. This is new. Previously, you said you can allocate your precision attacks to a character. Instead, while resolving attacks with one or more precision weapons, at the start of the allocation step, if the target contains a character that is visible to one or more attacking models, then all of those hits will hit the character first. This was pointed out to be very, very good with units that have like mass precision, something like Reavers, for example, with native precision on their 20 attacks. If you charge a unit of Blade Guard with a Judicia, because they don't fight first, so they just die. So you run in with your unit. You have 20 attacks. You hit with 16. You wound with 8. Your opponent rolls 8 saves on a 4. Your opponent rolls 4 2s and 4 6s. Your opponent has to put all of those 2s on the Judicia first, and then the Judicia dies. That is pretty funny. This always means your character will eat the worst possible saves if you have precision. Pretty good. I like this. Psychic. Psychic weapons ignore any modifiers to ballistic skill, weapon skill, and hit roll. Attacks made with psychic are known as psychic attacks. This is pretty good. Now, it doesn't matter if your psychic attack is a torrent weapon. And I wish it would say wounds. I wish it would just say all modifiers. And this is just what Psychic does, but actually, I take that back. The thing I actually want is just bring the Psychic phase back. Like what are we doing? Just bring the Psychic phase back. The Psychic phase was awesome. Everyone liked the Psychic phase, except Necron players, but I don't care what they think. Their faction is awful. Rapid fire. You get X extra dice if you're within half range. Good to know. Scouts. Scouts have Scout X, so before the battle begins, you can do one of the following. Okay. If a unit is within strategic reserves, you can set it up anywhere wholly within your deployment zone. Okay, so if you have Scout and you put a unit with Scout in reserves, you can then, before the game starts, just put it back on the board. That sounds pretty broken with the Twin Lands, because they have Scout and Deep Strike. So you would just put the Twin Lands in reserve, and if you go first, you would drop them down and then Scout, and if you go second, you would leave them in reserve and Rapid Ingress. That sounds pretty busted. That sounds pretty busted. If that unit is wholly within your deployment zone, you can make a scout move, see below. If a unit is embarked within a transport and wholly within the deployment zone, if every model has the scout rule, then the transport can make a scout move. Okay. If that unit is wholly within your deployment zone, that means you can no longer scout move if you infiltrate it, unless your infiltrate move takes you back into your deployment zone. That is interesting. I still think that is actually good enough. Instead of deploying your scouts like in the middle of the table, you now deploy your scouts within like 5 inches of your deployment zone. So if you go second, you can still walk back into your deployment zone. No, wait. Oh, no, wait. I'm an idiot. No, that doesn't work. You don't have to end the move in the deployment zone. You have to start the move outside. Okay, so Infiltrate Scout is actually dead. That is pretty bad for scouts. Ooh. I think Space Marine scouts are washed. Oh no. Please go back to 55 points. This is pretty bad for scouts. Ouch. Okay. Yeah, you move and you have to end the move outside of 8 from all enemy units. Little disclosure here. You can technically scout move closer to your enemy's deployment zone. It is not infiltrate. You don't have to stay outside of 8 of the deployment, only the models. Stealth. Stealth gives cover, so no -1 to hit. Stealth is just cover. Support is the same as leader. Super heavy walker is now a keyword, and that is the same thing. So you can move over other models, you can move over big terrain, but if you move over a big terrain, you have to roll a d6, and if you roll a 1, you're battle shocked. I still hate this rule. I think this rule is garbage. Instead of rolling 1d6, you should just be making a leadership check. I don't get why this is a different thing. Torrent automatically hits. Twin linked rolls wounds, still the same. Sustained hits. If you roll a crit, you get extra hits equal to the sustained number. Great. And then here, continuing in the app. Rules appendix. Okay. A bunch of clarifications. Half strength and starting strength. Starting strength of 1. Okay, this is just what we all know. So if you're at half strength, half of your wounds are remaining, or half of your models below half, blah blah. Okay, this makes perfect sense. Adding a new unit to your army. Some rules say you add a new unit. That unit's starting strength is determined when it's added to your army, but otherwise determined. Okay, destroyed. Further models will suffer damage, lose wounds, and be destroyed. If every model is destroyed, the unit is destroyed. When a model is destroyed, first resolve rules, so the trigger when it's destroyed, and when it's resolved from the battlefield. So this is like fight on death and stuff like that. Okay, different move. Every model can make its maximum distance, but you just have to be within coherency. That makes perfect sense. Okay. Eligible to fight, but unable to fight. During the fight sequence, when the sequence returns to a player to select a unit to fight, if all of that player's units that are eligible to fight are more than 5 units, the player can instead choose to pass and return the sequence to their opponent to select the unit. If both players pass in succession, or if one player passes when the opponent has no remaining units, the fight step ends. Ah, okay, interesting. So you can pass and say, I'm not piling in, you pile in. And if your opponent piles in, you can then pile in again. But if your opponent says, I won't pile in, then your opponent also can pile in. I get it. Okay. Some units contain models with different keywords, either because they are an attached unit or sort of separate on the data tree, blah, blah, in this case. So it uses all the keywords of all its models, but the models do not gain the keywords of all other models. Yeah, okay, makes sense. Objectives not within a terrain. If a location point of an objective does not coincide with terrain, you must denote the location of the objective with a flat circular marker. So you can still play with objective markers, makes perfect sense. If this is just something revived. When a U revives, resurrects, or returns models to a unit, the specified number of destroyed models added to the unit. This cannot expand beyond starting strength. Such models are added with all wargear and enhancements they had, blah blah blah. The model has blah blah blah. Models returned to the unit must be set up in coherency with models that started the phase on the battlefield. So you can't build a conga line outwards. Though, to be fair, with the 9-inch restriction, that is a lot harder to do. They can be engaged, but only if you were already engaged. Makes sense to me. If a leader gets revived in a unit, the leader comes back. Okay. Can a unit embark within a transport after making a scout move? No! Scout moves happen in the resolve pre-battle abilities, which comes after declare battle step and before begin battle step. Okay, so you can't scout into a transport anymore. That is something I did all the time. Good to know. The answer doesn't make much sense to me. The answer doesn't make sense to me, but the no is pretty. When my unit shoots an engaged monster, can units in my unit target a unit with blast weapon? No. So you can't shoot a monster in combat with a blast weapon. Makes sense. Can a unit that is eligible to make an overrun fight be selected to do so if it is not eligible to fight? No. It can get unengaged. That's nothing important. Okay. If a unit with no is a unit with no shooting weapons eligible to shoot, yes, because it can do an action. Okay, yep, makes sense to me. And that's the entire core rules. Thank you so much for sitting through all of this. If you were curious, my opinions on this, just before having played a single game, I think Fight First is a bad change. I think they should have just made the units worse, because right now Fight First just is useless as an ability, as it was in 8th and 9th. That will never did anything. It was complete garbage, unless you also had Fight Last, which doesn't exist. Yeah. Terrain is pretty interesting. Hidden and indirect, and then snapshots only hitting on 6s. That is pretty interesting. I'm interested to see how that goes. I love the fact that terrain is now objectives. This is a massive benefit to all of the objective based ability detachments like the Ceramite Sentinels or Reclamation Force. Those two, pretty cool. And of course, the combi lieutenant is gonna be insane now, because you pick an entire building to have reroll ones against. That is nuts. That is pretty nuts. Keep in mind, you can still reroll wound rolls when firing indirect in Overwatch, just not hit rolls. Which I'm trying to think. Is there a possibility that Anvil Siege Force is actually cooking? Because if you can get your opponent spotted, you can still hit on 4s with crit 5s out of indirect. And now they don't have AP. Actually, a lot of detachments get better in terms of damage with the drop in accuracy. My gut feeling is everything that hits on 2s or has full rerolls to hit or a lot of shots is going to be a lot better now. And things that are going to be worse are units like the Repulsor Executioner or the Gladiator Lancer, because you have these very high impact single shots that are going to hit on 5s now, because your opponent has smoke and cover, and that's going to be really bad. You want to reroll your wound rolls, and instead of going for those accurate single shot weapons, you will take just 25 heavy bolt rifle shots, and you're just gonna I'm gonna hit on 2s because I ignore cover. I'm gonna wound you on 5s because of oath, and I'm gonna reroll all the wound rolls because of my Anvil Siege Force strat, and then you make all of your AP1 saves because you don't have old cover anymore, so it's actually possible to kill you. Yeah, I think this is pretty interesting. I definitely want to see how the charge rules actually play out, and for that reason, I am really interested to see how that's gonna go. With that said, Battle Brothers, courage and honor, we march for McCraig.